Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our really exciting webinar. We are here today to talk about exploring and protecting our next frontier, the deep sea. And I am so excited to be joined by Julie Packard, who is the Executive Director of the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Julie, thank you so much for being here with me today, even if it's virtual.
Yeah, thanks, Daniela. Excited too.
I think that, for all of us here that are passionate about the ocean, one of the questions that we're always asking ourselves is how can we be more interested and fascinated by the ocean? And I think that when you go to beaches and when you go scuba diving, there's a lot of fascination. There's a lot of insights that we can gain. But there's also this incredible world at the bottom of our ocean, our deep sea, that most people don't really know about, that most people don't really understand. And so, Julie, I'd love to kick off this session and just asking you a little bit about how the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute is engaging in this deep sea research.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've had the great privilege of being involved in some great projects here on Monterey Bay, starting with the founding of the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which my dad helped get rolling. And after we opened the aquarium in '84, he, because he was an engineer, David Packard, co-founder of Hewlett Packard, he really got more and more interested in the ocean and realized that it was really technology limited and truly it was the last frontier. It still is on our planet. And so he was inspired to to found a new research institution, MBARI, Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. And the idea behind that institute was to accelerate our understanding of the deep sea by developing new technology and having teams of engineers and scientists work together side by side to develop that technology to answer the big questions we have about the ocean. So little investment in our own big frontier, our own inner space here on our planet, and so that was the inspiration behind MBARI, and they're just doing so much super cool work, just scratching the surface on what covers most of our planet.
That's amazing. And I'm just so thankful that that work is being done because as you always write in your articles, we know more about space, right? We know more about other planets than we actually know about our ocean, especially around our deep sea. So can you tell us a little bit about what do we now understand about the deep sea and its importance to the ocean and climate at large?
Yeah, well, you know, we live on an ocean planet. People have heard that before. You see those beautiful satellite or the beautiful maps from space of our planet, and it's just it's a small blue, beautiful marble, and covered mostly by ocean. And of course, it covers, you know, over 70% of the surface. But if you look at it in 3 dimensions, the ocean actually is something like 99% of the living space on Earth. So we live here on land, and you know, we've studied a lot and understand about our terrestrial world, but really what most of planet Earth is ocean, and most of that ocean is
Julie, I think I lost you for a second there.
traditionally what our means to understand the deep sea was, you know, we'd go around in ships and we'd throw a bucket over the side or you know, a net or whatever and drag up something unintelligible. And we really had we just had a very, very cursory understanding. Since the advent of a lot of the new technology that we have, like submarines that people can go down to observe firsthand, or in MBARI's case, we decided to go with a robotic route, and we have a fleet of amazing amazing robotic vehicles that are going down and taking samples, and most importantly, capturing amazing video images of what is going down in the, you know, what's going on there. What we're discovering is the life forms and the whole food web and the ecosystem there is a lot different than when we first thought of it. You know, as humans, we think about the ocean, we think about fish and whales and dolphins, you know, those animals. actually by far the most abundant animals are different gelatinous life forms, like jellyfish. Many of them actually are much weirder than jellyfish, and there's just a whole world there. But aside from all the cool animals there, the deep sea is a hugely important driver in global climate. So, all the weather that we experience here on land, it's driven by wind and current patterns that happen over the ocean. And when it comes to what's going on right now with all the CO2 buildup in our atmosphere, the ocean's a big part of what we call the carbon cycle. And so it just, it has such a huge role, an unseen role, beyond all the cool animals, which I love to talk more about. But, at the big level, the plants in the ocean generate, huge amount of oxygen we breathe. It modulates climate. It absorbs excess carbon we put in the atmosphere. It provides, all of these, if you will, services, sequesters heat. The globe would be a lot hotter if it weren't for that cool ocean. So in all those ways, it's a really big deal. And we're all working to start to build awareness about its role and start understanding it and taking action to protect it.
Absolutely. Thank you for describing that. And let's definitely talk more about the animals in there, because one of the things that I think that all people relate to are creatures. I think that, for example, for me, my favorite animal is the penguin, as you can see in my background here. And for little kids, for adults, there's always that fascination with being able to relate to creatures and wanting to protect them. And I think that for a lot of folks, that's the first entry point to the ocean, is wanting to feel connected to it. My personal deep sea creature is the ghost octopus Casper. So tell us a little bit about yours and what other ones you've experienced and seen.
Daniela, my audio, I'm not making out at the moment. I'm really sorry to say. Keep it rolling, and I'll see if I can pick you up again.
Can you hear me now? Julie, I was just asking about the which animal you were most fascinated by. Doesn't seem like you can hear me okay. Is our tech host there? Can he help us out? Maybe Julie might have to call in. Everyone can hear you, Julie, and they can hear me as well. Hi, everyone. Thanks for your patience. As you know, there's always some technical difficulties, regardless of how we're moving into this virtual world.
I'm just not hearing Daniela. I'm happy to keep chatting. Oh, type of marine animal. Perfect. Well, that is such a hard question. But I'm going to stick with the deep sea theme here and talk about one of the cool animals I become fascinated with of late, which is called a bloody belly comb jelly. How's that for a weird animal? I mentioned all the gelatinous animals in the ocean, and one kind that's really cool is a relative of the typical jellyfish that you've maybe seen at the Monterey Bay Aquarium or on your beaches. Maybe you got stung by one wherever you live. Sorry about that. And of course, jellyfish are not fish. They are invertebrate animals. And the bloody belly comb jelly is a type that is a beautiful crystal ball with rows. It's called comb rows of little hairs, little cilia that propel it along, and it shimmers like a jewel. It's also really interesting. A lot of the deep sea animals are red, and no one really understands why, because you can't really see much color down there. Most of the wavelengths are filtered out, and it's dark anyway, more importantly. And there's a hypothesis that maybe it's got the red color because it eats glowing bioluminescent prey, and it wants to hide that light so predators can't see it. Can't see what's in its stomach, essentially. So there's so many just fascinating weird animals that are in the deep sea, and that's that's a favorite deep sea animal. Of course, at the bigger level, I studied marine algae, so seaweeds. I mean, I love animals, but I'm actually a botanist by training, like Sylvia Earle. We both share that, and the giant kelp that you'll see along the coasts of South America and the West Coast here, definitely the most, the coolest and my favorite. One of my favorite things in the ocean, just because they grow. They're considered to be probably the fastest growing plant on Earth, maybe next to bamboo. They can grow, almost up to 2 feet a day, and they harbor all kinds of beautiful life that lives within them. So anyway, too many things to choose from.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if you can hear me, Julie, but I'll just keep it going and I have John send you questions via chat. So for everyone else, I would highly encourage all of you to just Google deep sea creatures
Still
because they
can't
are
write
really
it in the
fast.
chat.
Will do. All right. So the next question I have for you is, can you explain why the deep sea is our next moonshot? We're gonna have our tech person chat it in there.
Well, we've heard a lot of talk of late about getting back to exploring outer space. We have all these private companies that are doing, talking about going to Mars and all of that. And an idea that's come up by some of the ocean community of late is really the idea of doing a moonshot for the ocean. And the idea behind that is, when you think about it, during the time that the whole space program and NASA really ramped up, basically, America decided to invest literally billions of dollars and all the talent they could possibly muster to make this possible. And we made this incredible quantum leap. And so, when you think about it right now, it's such an interesting time because we're seeing in other domains. I mean, that the Earth shot idea, the really doing a big investment in exploring our space here on Earth has been around for a while, but since the past few months have really jerked our head around on so many domains, we've seen that the global community is actually able to accelerate progress, if we all fire up and work together. And certainly the response we've seen to the coronavirus pandemic and the acceleration of science and vaccine development and just the collaboration that's happened across the globe shows us, hey, we can do it. Now, I would ask, protecting the planet and saving the ocean is as urgent as, anything I can think of. But of course, obviously human health and a pandemic, feels a lot more urgent. But it shows that we can do it. And, the other thing about it is that we have, of course, the really groundbreaking and very disturbing, developments in terms of all the racial equity and social justice protests going on here in the U.S. and the whole movement around Black Lives Matter, and again the uprising of people working together to make things happen across this nation and even globally. Again, we need to mobilize and fire up. So that's the idea with making a big investment in the ocean. Everyone has a part in the ocean. It's already the ocean covers the globe, and every single every single nation, every single community, every single village on the coast, everyone touches that same ocean. And so if there was any space where we all, have the opportunity, if not the imperative, and I believe it is an imperative, to collaborate around big push on exploration, research, and then in turn, all of that leading to better management and smart, informed management decisions. It's now, and I hope that I really encourage everyone to advocate for that happening.
For sure, and we absolutely agree with the idea that technology and science need to work hand in hand. Maybe you can expand upon that a little bit and give us some specific examples as to what type of technology, what type of collaboration investment we need, especially as we enter the UN Decade of Ocean Science. Who needs to be involved and how? They're going to chat the question in there for you now.
I think that the some of the technology that is being developed right now has really been quite, I mean, I don't even know where to start. It's amazing. So some of the most recent technology that's really going to accelerate our understanding of the ocean, that I can give an example, are things that MBARI has worked on recently. So just for starters, one of those is mapping technology. We need to map the seafloor. We're talking about mining the seafloor. We've already been trawling the seafloor like crazy, and that damage, stays on the sea bottom for decades. You can see it. I mean, then the photographs of that are shocking. And I know Daniela and many of the advocacy groups she's involved with are working on this whole matter of, should we mine the seafloor when we really haven't even mapped it and don't know what's there and which areas, if we're going to do that, are the ones that we need to protect. So one of the things that MBARI has developed is super high definition technology for getting the resolution of these seafloor maps down to a really fine level. I mean, they can map a big area and see, a piece of trash or some, very small object, and that's so that's one thing that needs to happen. That's exciting. The other thing is just bringing down the costs and developing the technology to instrument the ocean. The ocean's huge, and it's a very it's a tough and unforgiving place to try to do science. Right now, if you want to go out and measure, whether it's ocean temperature or the plankton productivity or whether ocean acidification is happening, whatever you want to measure, in many cases, traditionally, you have to go out there in a ship. That's how it happens. We can get some information from satellites, but the big opportunity is to deploy instruments that can monitor the criteria in the ocean and how it's changing and how healthy it is in a completely automated way. And so the thing that's really that's exciting that many of the global ocean, governments around the ocean and the big science institutes, including MBARI, are involved with is doing a massive deployment of an ocean observing system around the globe. And MBARI is involved in what instruments are on those floats. And so they're just floating around the ocean, traveling up and down in the water column, gathering data, sending those data to satellite, and the scientists are and their computers are gathering the data so we can get a completely automated picture of the health of the ocean. Now, one of the things that I'm excited about that our team and a lot of other universities have been involved with just recently that's been deployed is a big investment in putting more of these monitoring buoys down in the Southern Ocean, in that whole band of ocean that rims Antarctica. And down there is so much productivity, and it's a very imperiled by global climate change. I know everyone, we hear about the we hear about what's happening, about the, ice shelves melting, about the, amazing penguin populations that are being imperiled, and just the huge ecosystem changes that are happening there that are going to have an impact, on global fisheries, on the ability of the ocean to absorb carbon. I mean, big impacts. It's so hard to work down there. Like, we have very little data. And MBARI is involved in a big deployment of ocean observing buoys, these floats that are going to exist down there and gather data. So using their technology, super cool. The other thing, finally, I'd mention that's a big opportunity for new technology in understanding the ocean is the whole is genomics. And by that, I mean gathering samples, just gathering a seawater sample, analyzing the DNA in the seawater from little bits, fish scales or slough dot or the tiny plankton, whatever is in there. There is technology now to analyze the DNA in that seawater and, automatically know here's the life that it is here and that's been here. That is really going to revolutionize things. And MBARI and Woods Hole and many of the colleagues are involved in that technology, which is pretty amazing. Really going to, the idea of automating and helping us understand things at a much bigger level, down to like what this means for you. If you live on the coast and you have experienced these toxic algae blooms, which are a big deal in a lot of areas. Those toxic algae blooms can, they kill the fish, they kill the marine mammals, they can have a big, big impact on the regional economy, not to mention your ecosystem. And these automated devices could just monitor what plankton are in the water and give you a heads up ahead of time. Yeah, hazardous algal bloom is on its way. And say if you're an oyster farmer, you could harvest up your oysters before you lose your whole crop, for example. So there are many applications. Super exciting.
Thanks for sharing, Julie. And I want to ask a question from the audience, and that question is, how is deep sea exploration being funded? Because of course we have all these big corporations that might have very large.
So, how is deep sea exploration funded? That is, first of all, it's not funded enough. You knew that I was going to say that. It mainly, the funding that is being provided right now is, it comes from the government funding agencies. And, in the US, that mainly comes from the National Science Foundation and NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Our federal science budgets have been slashed and burned here in the US over the past number of years. It's something people really need to advocate for. I can't comment on the status of government funding in other countries where some of our audience may be listening from, but we all need to advocate for government investment. The thing is, along with that, there's private company investment in some amount, seafloor mapping. Obviously, if you're the oil industry, you're funding seafloor maps, but we need independent, transparent, publicly accessible data about about deep sea life and the seafloor and what's going on there. The Aquarium Research Institute is funded by private philanthropy. And so there is a cadre, actually a growing group of new funders for deep sea research, which is super cool. MBARI, we've been in existence for, I'm gonna say like over 30 years now, but we have some wonderful new players that are deploying research institutes using privately funded vessels and privately funding that research. So the philanthropically funded piece in the big scheme of things, pretty small. And, so the question about the relative size of, budgets for exploration for, for commercial and extractive purposes, I don't know what those budgets are, but basically those are really about looking at the seafloor and where are the resources, or doing test drills for offshore oil leasing. When it comes to ecosystem characterization, like what are the animals, where are there places, like we didn't discover, the science community along the coast of California discovered these incredible coral forests right here in our cold temperate waters offshore that are part of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And I mean, some of these corals, they're as tall as a tree and they're 400 years old. I mean, they're amazing. They're like the old growth forests in the ocean. We have those all over the ocean and they haven't been mapped. So, do you want to do mining there? I don't think so. So, suffice it to say, multiple times more funding is spent by commercial interests in, focusing on the things to extract than looking at the ecosystem itself.
Great. So now that we've talked about the importance of our deep sea, now that we understand the importance for exploration and better understanding it, it's really critical that we talk about this looming threat. And you already alluded to it a couple times, Julie, and that's deep sea mining. To me and to our SLE community and to young people globally, it's something that is so illogical that we now want to destroy the deep sea. So I would love to get your thoughts as to what the potential risks are there.
So deep seabed mining. It's so interesting that, I went to college back in 1970 and I remember my first oceanography class, they were talking about this thing called mining for manganese nodules. That was 50 years ago. And then we all kind of forgot about it. And it's interesting. I think probably just with, the demand by the many more billions of people and all of our use of technology that's developed over those 50 years. I mean, it's taken a long time, but we are at the point where it's mobilizing to happen. And, I think one of the reasons it took so long is, we've been able to get all of the rare earth minerals and resources we needed from the land. There's been tremendous ecosystem damage because of that. But now it's time when, people are looking to the ocean and it's, the question is it cost effective? It's tremendously expensive, obviously, to go out and try to mine the seafloor at, thousands and thousands of feet deep. But it's finally getting to where, it's appearing to be it's worth it. Let's move ahead and see if we can do it. So my thoughts about that are, it's a really bad idea, first of all. And, before we do that, let's really put our energy into mobilizing all of the talent we can around looking at alternatives. And of course, most importantly, for all of us in our daily lives, advocating for, more efficient use of whatever rare earth resources are used in the technology that we use every day, advocating for these companies to come up with better solutions. There's a lot, as I understand it, from, talking to experts in the field, there's a lot of opportunity for movement with other, on other solutions. And it's, so for now, the best thing that we can do is just slow down the push to accelerate this ahead and realize, like with everything else on the earth that we extract for our lives, and we need those things. We need the wood, we need water, we need, we love our technology. We wouldn't be here together right now if not for the technology. And there's a lot of things in the device that, we're speaking through right now that that had negative impacts on the land, to bring us here together. But we really need to accelerate the investment in R&D on alternatives, on more efficient use of the materials that we're using now. And I believe there's a role for consumers in accelerating that progress. The reason I believe that actually is because of our experience on a whole nother big threat to the ocean that we've been working on at Monterey Bay Aquarium, and that is to try to move away from the huge amount of overfishing that's going on in our ocean and move toward a more sustainable approach to fisheries and aquaculture. And hopefully, many of you have heard about the Seafood Watch program, which basically is a consumer guide that the Monterey Bay Aquarium began 20 years ago. And through that and the effort of a lot of other NGOs and awesome advocates, we're really making progress on building consumer awareness about the impacts of the seafood that we love to eat, and pushing the companies that bring it to us to adopt standards and improve their fishing practices to be more sustainable. The Seafood Watch program now has rated and ranked against sustainability criteria thousands of fisheries and these are mainly focused on seafood that comes into the U.S. market, because we're a huge market for seafood here in the U.S. But these are products that are in the marketplace all over the world, and the more we the more we demand, establish criteria for what does it mean to catch a piece of halibut in a sustainable way. What are the risks to the ecosystem and to the ocean health in that fishery? Is it catching endangered seabirds? Is it scraping the seafloor? Is it overfished? Are there no data behind? We really don't know the status. All of those criteria are really, just gathering the data and saying, okay, this is well managed. We have the data to know, okay, we can fish at this level. It'll be okay. And most recently, actually, we've added labor practices and social justice to the criteria, because the seafood industry, of course, a lot of people are employed, and people need to know what are the labor conditions that are involved with fish that they buy. So again, these deep sea minerals are all things that we use every day, and yet they're, what do we know about it? Not much. So I think it's a great effort to bring that to light.
Of course, and it makes sense for us to first understand and experience and explore before making any earth-threatening decisions. And I would love for you to expand a little bit more about the risks, because from the research that we've done at SOA, we know that there's a lot of potential loss for habitat destruction. There could be light pollution that will affect living species. There could also be noise pollution, and there could just be detrimental changes to the deep sea that we may not be able to understand, and it might have an impact in the next hundreds of thousands of years. So perhaps you can talk a little bit more about those risks.
Well, when we talk about the potential risks of deep sea mining, it starts obviously with disturbance to the seafloor, and I think I mentioned how if you look at some of these maps, you can find them online, that show the impact of all the trawling on the seabed, you'll see, I mean, the whole seabed, it looks, I mean, it's unbelievable, you know, the amount of the footprint there. It looks like the whole thing's a bunch of highways and roadways, and so in that seafloor, in essentially mud that covers, you know, all the deep sea floor, people think the ocean, the deep sea, they used to think it was dead, nothing could live there. Well, far from it. You know, in that sediment covering the whole ocean seabed, there's a huge amount of life. And that all of those life forms are part of the ocean ecosystem that's providing those services that I mentioned, like bringing up, you know, or like sequestering the carbon dioxide and or the carbon in the seafloor, and just, you know, providing, you know, it's part of the whole cycle. I mean, the ocean, all the life that developed in the ocean, it's all part of a very complex web, and every animal depends on other species to survive. So there's ecosystem impacts just from that disturbance to begin with. A second big problem that's on people's mind is to mine these minerals out of the seafloor. They're talking about, you have to do it with these huge, essentially like a giant vacuum cleaner that's like sucking up at a very fast rate the seafloor sediments and the resources you're trying to get. That kicks up a huge amount of sediment in the water. It's really still down there. I mean, the water is very clear, you know, unless there's like an underground, you know, I mean, an undersea landslide or something, it's very still and clear. And all the animals that live in the water column there, they depend on that. They need to, you know, it would be a huge disturbance in terms of just kicking up a huge sediment plume. I mean, and these are big sediment plumes that would come out of that. That's a huge concern. Some of the developers are saying they could, you know, capture that somehow or redirect it in a way, but all of the you know, the vacuuming up of the resources, then, you know, they're sifted out, and then, you know, they've got all the sediment they've got to dump back into the ocean. So that's a huge impact. And obviously, you know, noise pollution, light pollution, you've just got a lot of activity of very large vessels out there. You know, we already have some of that going on. Do we need more? And it's at a very, you know, these are very large scale operations that are being talked about. Noise pollution is, you know, a relatively, it's not a new ocean impact concern, but it's one that previously people, you know, we've been aware of strandings of whales and dolphins, and they've been linked perhaps to, you know, like military operation, noise, you know, noise blasts and this sort of thing. The impact of noise pollution on ocean life is a big area of more and more research going on. Actually, our scientists at MBARI are working on that. We've got a great a new acoustic research focused ocean scientists at MBARI that has a listening station out to kind of parse out all the different frequencies of sound out there from all the human activities, and how they are potentially affecting ocean life. So those are just a few, just a few.
Thanks, Julia. The few but important ones that we should all be aware about. From SOA's perspective, it just seems so unfathomable that we have so many other ocean problems that we're actively trying to fix. And now we're entering this era where we're trying to destroy the ocean even further. So I'd love to get your thoughts around, you know, there are a lot of different organizations in some countries that are looking to support a pause or a moratorium on seabed mining. I'd love to hear your thoughts about those efforts?
I think the idea, and actually Daniela, because you're really involved through SOA and this whole initiative around, putting a pause on the deep sea mining idea, and you might be better to share the more information about the conservation groups working on this campaign. Basically, there's a growing mobilization around NGOs and countries that really want to mobilize and try to slow this down. The thing about it is it's very, the governance of it is very obscure. I mean, if you talk to the public about, hey, who manages our fisheries? I mean, they probably don't know the answer to that. If you talk to them about who's in charge of mining the seabed out in the open sea, the open ocean area, which is not owned by anyone, it's very, very obscure. And so the mechanisms to put a pause or to stop it even are, kind of arcane. And at the aquarium, we are not right now, specifically involved in a campaign around it with other NGOs. Our role, because we have a big voice and a lot of social media followers, is really on the education. And once things get rolling, we very well may link to action opportunities that our colleagues are doing. But the one thing I will say, and Daniela, you could I'm sure elaborate for the audience more on it, an important thing to know is that within all of our countries, we're in charge of our ocean area out to 200 miles, what's called the exclusive economic zone of all of our nations. So every country can kind of do whatever it wants out to 200 miles. And some countries are already mobilizing around this and even doing experimental seabed mining as we speak. Japan is one of those. But most of the ocean, of course, is beyond that limit, and that's where the only way to have regulations and control over what happens is through these international treaty bodies. And same with fisheries. They're really imperfect. I mean, everyone understands we need to figure out how to manage this common resource and not use it up until it's gone, and not destroy the future opportunity for sustainable resource use. More importantly, in my opinion, the future opportunity for ocean health for everyone. But so it's kind of a two-part question. And Daniela, yeah, you could maybe elaborate a bit on the groups and opportunities that you think people should can get involved in now and in learning more about it, and who's been forward thinking on it, because you've been doing some great work getting stuff rolling in all of this.
Thanks, Julie. Absolutely. For us, it's always, like you mentioned, education is first. So we've been putting on a series of webinars such as this one to simply let people know that this is an issue and this is a looming threat that is going to affect the ocean and is going to affect all of us working in this space. So for those of you that want to gather more information, you can definitely find more of our Ocean Learning Lab series on our website. But our stand is to have a 10-year moratorium period before there's any type of extraction or mining in the ocean. As I mentioned earlier, we have a global community of young people that are working to address overfishing, plastic pollution, you name the ocean problem, and we simply, as a generation that is inheriting these problems, we simply do not want to be involved or responsible or allow more destruction to happen to the ocean than what it already exists. So that is our stance, and we do have a public petition that we have rolling. Again, you can find it on our website for anyone who wants to speak up and also take some action. So we are actively trying to figure out who is involved, how can we create some momentum, how can we reach out to different representatives in other countries that are involved in these negotiations at the UN level, so we can let them know that they might be making the wrong decision if they decide to vote for the commercialization of mining our deep sea. So I want to also transition and just ask you, Julie, what are some actions that you think that young people or just individuals, corporations can take to get more involved or more acquainted with this issue?
Well, I'll take a stab at the question. What can we do to act? I mean, like I said, first of all, link up, and again, Daniela can give you the best immediate action items in terms of petitions or putting your voice behind, getting everyone's voices in front of the powers that be, as they say, to like see if we can, get things to slow down. And as far as people can get more involved, certainly at the aquarium, we're going to be following this and providing resources for learning, and also linking you up with action opportunities. There's a lot going on right now in terms of people mobilizing around around it. I would say also, though, and again, no one is formally mounting this as a big national movement, but I'm really intrigued again with the consumer and business action angle. And I've seen with the global sustainable seafood movement that can really make a difference. Now, we've all been at that for 20 years. And of course, there's still a lot of overfishing going on and a lot of unsustainable aquaculture. It's really, we're talking about shifting a cultural norm in that case. Now, we're not gonna be able to ask people to, stop using our iPhones or anything like that. But we can really be pressing on companies around their corporate sustainable responsibility commitments. And I really encourage that. And I know that, all the millennials, all the young people are the market for all of that. And you're all being marketed to nonstop all the time. And we all love our technology. And, you need to put that together and say, okay, what is in this iPhone? And like, I need to, make my voice heard, because that pressure is what makes a difference. And I would say, case in point, the past few weeks here in the US and the huge uprising around racial equity and social justice in the US, and people demanding commitments from companies, is unprecedented. And we all look at that and say, yeah, we've all agreed with that for a long time. We've kind of been asleep and just, I don't know, we gave up or figured that nothing would happen. But companies are listening, and they are all, I mean, you can see it. They're all needing to say what they're doing about it. And that voice is needed toward the companies that develop all of the resources that we use every day.
For sure. Thanks, Julie, for answering that question. And just to piggyback on your response, for those of you that are interested in this space, I would also highly encourage you to look at the circular economy, because if we can recycle and reuse a lot of these products that are already out there, we don't necessarily have to go out and mine for new minerals and materials. We can use it as a cycle. I know that Apple, that is one of the biggest companies in the world, they actually recycle all of their materials, so they're not necessarily going out and mining for more. So we should find those champions, those companies that are willing to tell us where exactly the materials are coming from, and also their stand on deep sea bed mining, so we can better know how to support them or not support them, depending on what actions they're taking. So now I'd love to move into audience questions. One of the questions that we have here is, how has this pandemic affected our ocean in terms of showcasing the need for conservation? I think she might see the question. Yeah, it's in there already.
I think the pandemic is, the question is, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected our ocean in terms of showcasing the need for conservation? I think it's affected our environment and showcasing the need, especially to take action on global climate change in so many ways. The thing is, right now, everyone understandably is, pretty distracted in the news with a lot of more immediate human needs things going on, and of course, all of the really important activism going on around racial equity, especially here in the U.S. But I know it's something that we are really thinking about at the aquarium, and I'm sure all the ocean advocates and NGOs are as well, how we can make more clear that connection, because it, absolutely, first of all, the virus, presumably came from wild animals. That's because of habitat loss. And in turn, now that we're in the pandemic, the socioeconomic impacts, the food insecurity are going to have a huge impact, going to cause a backslide. People are in a really, really dire situation. And, they need to feed their families. So, things that, whether it's eating forest animals or just fishing for whatever you can possibly get to feed your family, that's going to be first and foremost on people's minds. I think in terms of ocean conservation management, all the laws we have in place, face it, already here in the US, all of our environmental laws have been under siege and a big rollback by Washington for the past few years, and they need to be put back in place. Unfortunately, right now, understandably, if you look at polling of Americans, the environment is pretty much at the bottom of like the top things on people's mind. Of course it is. We understand that. It's, between, the kind of trifecta of the pandemic, the call to end racism in America, and the economic downturn, that's a lot going on. But I do think it's time when we need to for all of us that are working on ocean issues, continue to raise awareness, especially. It's going to be hard to get a lot of forward action on ocean management issues globally, perhaps, and certainly the seabed mining thing, I think we absolutely need to fire up about, right now, because that's something pending to move forward. But it's resource management laws are not going to be at the top of people's minds, and so it's going to need to be up to all of us just to to hold our ground, and to, whether it's our local community or our country government, hold ground, try to make forward progress, continue to invest in the science, which is the underpinning for good resource management. And do the best we can until at least the pandemic, this pandemic phase we're in settles down in a couple of years.
Hopefully sooner. I know that we're all looking forward to I guess resuming life, but really changing our approach. And I think that from my perspective, this should be a massive wake up call to everyone, because it's not the first time or the last we're going to encounter something like this if we don't change our behaviors, our way of being. So I again would encourage everyone to just take some time to reflect and see how you can contribute to the betterment and health of our planet instead of contributing to its destruction. So I'll end the webinar with one last question that we have from one of our audience members, John, and his question is, what is the role of aquariums in forging new and better links between the world, ocean, and our species? And that's right up your alley, Julie. So.
What is the role of aquariums in forging new and better links between the world, ocean, and our species? So that, of course, is a subject near and dear to my heart. I am such a fan of the role that public aquariums can take. Why? Because I've had the privilege of being involved in our amazing institution, Monterey Bay Aquarium, for all these decades. And you know, when we first started the aquarium, I thought naively, oh, we're just going to convey information to people about the importance of the ocean, and they'll get it, and then we'll tell them what they should do about it. And I realized quickly that the biggest impact of an aquarium, of course, is we have the live animals. And unless you're a diver and you get to be in the ocean, and that's a really small percentage of the world, you really, you know, you just don't have that opportunity. And our institutions provide that opportunity. And the most important thing that is happening at our aquarium and others is people falling in love with the ocean. It's really an emotional connection and a happy time together. You know, during this pandemic, people have just flocked to our social media sites to, you know, hang out on our webcams, and we have a meditation session in front of our big ocean exhibit every morning, and all of that is it's providing a place for well, right now it's kind of providing a refuge, if you will, a place to reconnect with the natural world that is, and remind us we're part of that natural world. You know, these days, so much front and center in our mind is the human condition and all of our social issues and where they are and where they're taking us. So aquariums more and more are getting involved in not just science and education, but in conservation. We've been a leader in that. We have galvanized 20 aquariums around the US to have conservation advocacy programs and to mobilize all of their followers and constituents to advocate for a future with a healthy ocean. So you can look for more of that, and I encourage you to link up with the Monterey Bay Aquarium social media, and also wherever you are, if there's a public aquarium, go on their website, check out their social media, because we are collectively advocating, at least the US aquariums are, around ocean issues, and you can get involved in that way.
Thanks, Julie. I know you can't hear me, but I just want to thank you for being a part of this webinar and sharing your insight and knowledge with all of our participants. And for all of you watching, please make sure that you check out Monterey Bay Aquarium social media and website, get involved, spend some time in their live cams, enjoying the ocean from a distance. And also, if you want to be more involved in this campaign against seabed mining, you can check out our own website and learn more about how you can be a part of this movement. So thank you for your time, and just continue becoming educated and continue falling in love with the ocean. So I hope you all remain safe, and we'll be in touch. So thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Thanks, Daniela. It's been super fun. Thanks to everyone for being with us.